Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, utilizing the force of nature to improve wildlife habitat. We're at FireFest in Sarasota County, learning how a prescribed burn can have immense benefits to the land and the animals who live there. Plus, it's an area with the most densely nestled sea turtle beaches in North America. We head to the east coast of Florida, Juno Beach, where the Loggerhead Marine Life Center is being inundated with sick and injured sea turtles. And later in the show, we're learning how scientists are working to mitigate red-type algal blooms. See the new technology that Mote Marine officials are hoping will reduce the negative effects of red tide on our marine ecosystems. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. A prescribed fire is a planned fire, and it's when there's an actual prescription, a set of conditions that include the weather, the safety of the public, and burn objectives. Fire officials say it's a careful process, and it's vital to maintaining Florida's natural ecosystem. Now you may ask, how can burning something down make it better for the animals? Well, it's better because it can strengthen and restore plants, which also helps restore nutrients in the soil. It limits the risk of an uncontrolled wildfire, which would be detrimental to all. We recently got an up-close look at how this kind of fire is created and why it can protect our community.
The benefits to the land are immense, and I think that's such a valuable aspect of our land management tools that we use. Today we're here at FireFest down at the Carlton Reserve. We're doing a live fire demonstration for the public so they can see what we talk about, what we're talking about when we talk about prescribed burning. Prescribed burning is utilizing specific weather conditions to burn the vegetation on our land in order to reduce the hazardous vegetation, the vegetation buildup, and also it helps to improve the wildlife habitat. The animals, they know, they can sense when the fire is coming, so anything with wings is going to fly away. Any of our mammals or anything like that, they're going to run out of the area. And then there's also a lot of different critters that will utilize different burrows, whether it be a gopher tortoise burrow, an armadillo burrow, and they'll actually hide in there. So, your smaller lizards and things like that are going to hide in those burrows while the fire is passing. And then once the fire passes, they're going to be able to come out of that area. That reduced vegetation allows more grasses and grazing material for the animals to eat. You're going to see quickly after one of these burns, you get a little bit of rain. Within a week or so, we're actually going to have grasses popping right back up. A lot of the areas that we have within Sarasota County, typically, historically, they would have burned every 3 to 5 years just through lightning strike fires. So we try to replicate that timeline. So, and it's not a specific time, but it's somewhere in that range. With Sarasota County, we typically average 40 to 60 burns a year. Our goal is burning an average of 7,000 to 10,000 acres a year. So yeah, so we stay quite busy. Typically on these burns, we're gonna have 6 to 10 people, usually with a lot of experience within that group. So you have your incident commander, which would be someone like myself, who's actually the burn boss, as we call it. And then underneath them, you may have people running divisions, which would be groups of engines. And then you have your engine bosses. Those are the people in charge of the small, 3-person crews. And then also you have a firing group. So you'll have a firing boss who's going to be managing the igniters for it. So, and then typically we like to have a safety officer if we can. Just to keep an eye on things, just make sure everything's safe. And then if we're in an area where, like when we burn down at Shamrock Park or something like that, we're also gonna have like a public information officer, somebody there, on either side of the burn, just to let the public know what's going on, just to keep them safe, keep them out of the smoke. Most of our structure firefighters, at least in Sarasota County, they actually do what we call our basic 40. It's a 40-hour training that all wildland firefighters have to do to start. But that's just the beginning. From there, I mean, I've been in class thousands of hours at this point in my career because there's a whole series of classes that can be taken. But to just start, to get your foot in the door on this would be a class called your S130-190, and that's your basic wildland firefighter class. The thing with prescribed fire is we all need to work together across this wildfire community. So here represented today, we have members from the Florida Forest Service, from the Florida Park Service, from Sarasota County Fire Department, and from Sarasota County Parks, Rec, and Natural Resources. So you can see it's a joint effort. Everybody has different specialized equipment and unique skills that they can bring to the table so we can do this together. The work that we do here is twofold. The first is to protect our communities. By reducing the amount of vegetation we have in our forests, it's decreasing the intensity of those fires. The second thing that it does, like I said, is to benefit the wildlife. But yes, so everything that we do here, we consider for those two aspects. So I've always loved the outdoors. I started in state parks working with watershed resources and things like that. And then I happened to come across this as an opportunity to work outdoors, and I just fell in love with it. It was the first time I breathed in that smoke. I knew this is what I wanted to do. Before all the development was here, these areas would naturally burn every 3 to 5 years. So really what we're doing is just trying to, in a safe manner, because we have so many people living here now, just reintroducing that fire, but keeping our community safe.
Here are some tips from Matt on how you could help limit the risk of uncontrolled fires in your neighborhood. Always check to see if there are any burn restrictions before starting a fire on your property. Keep a hose near any fires you may be burning. Check the weather and avoid windy situations. And he says it's also recommended to have a 30-foot buffer around your house. Keep the vegetation at a distance. If you're building a home, use asphalt shingles and concrete block. Coming up after the break on Animal Outtakes, we visit the Loggerhead Marine Life Center in Juno Beach. It's one of Florida's most visited nonprofit scientific destinations focused on ocean and sea turtle conservation. And we will show you why.
Every animal that finds its way to Farmhouse Animal and Nature Sanctuary has a story. Some are beyond heartbreaking. But here, we focus on the future. We make sure each animal will spend the rest of their life feeling safe, loved, and protected. To help the animals at FANS, visit farmhousesanctuary.org. Learn more about becoming a volunteer and how to donate. Will you be the one who makes a difference? Donate today to help the animals who call Farmhouse home.
The plight of the sea turtle, it's not an easy one. Even though these animals have been around for millions of years, they often face medical hardships that require human intervention. At the Loggerhead Marine Life Center in Juno Beach, Florida, they focus on conservation, rehabilitation, and education. It's a hefty load, and they've been at it for about 40 years. And as you will see, they're as busy as ever. The recent cold spells have brought a large number of sick and injured sea turtles to their door.
We are at Loggerhead Marine Life Center, which is an ocean conservation center dedicated to the rehabilitation, research, and conservation of sea turtles. It has obviously been very cold, unusually cold around the country this year. So we have a number of Kemp's Ridley sea turtles that came in as cold stuns from New England. And then this weekend was also very cold around the state. And so we've had a number of green sea turtles come in from North Florida. and they're not technically cold stuns because their body temperature wasn't below 50 degrees, but they're clearly very cold stressed and all about the same size, so sort of dinner platter size green sea turtles, and we are getting them really from all over the state, and that's giving us about 5 times the number of sea turtles that we typically have here in the hospital. We do a lot of diagnostic testing, so blood work and x-rays and even CAT scans, sort of like you see behind me, and that gives us a very good idea of exactly what's going wrong with these turtles and what we need to do to fix that and get them back on the right track to health again. Cold stunning is when waters become very unexpectedly cold. So sea turtles do migrate from colder areas to warmer areas in the winter. But sometimes if the cold comes very brutally and unexpectedly, they may not have made it far enough south yet, or they may be in the far south waters, but it just becomes unexpectedly cold there. And if their body temperatures go below 50 degrees, reptiles aren't like humans. Their body temperature depends on the external temperature. So their body temperature is going to mirror what the temperature of the water is around them. And when that happens, all of their metabolic processes, organ function, everything starts to really slow down, and they can even potentially freeze to death. It's very common for them to get frostbite and pneumonia as secondary problems, and to get bacterial infections that are pretty severe. On average, we see over 2,000 sea turtles every year, and actually our release rate is very high. It's about 72% for the year. Last year, at least, that was our statistics. I have a team of 4 veterinary technicians, as well as amazing animal care people, and over 200 active volunteers who are all helping us in these efforts. And that makes a huge difference because some of these turtles need people with them around the clock. If they're in the intensive care unit, sometimes they need somebody who's going to be right there with them, adjusting as they need it. And that kind of care really makes a difference. A big part of our mission is obviously to save the species. So many of these turtles are either threatened or endangered. Some of them are critically endangered. For example, the Kemp's Ridleys that we have here. And so we really want to do everything we can to try to get those numbers back up, particularly with all of the challenges that our ocean-going animals are facing these days with climate change and pollution, particularly plastics pollution. Over 95% of our babies who come back, so we call those washbacks, so they made it out to the ocean, but then they're coming back to the beach. Over 95% of those have plastic impaction. So they just mistake those little plastic pieces for food, and then that's very bad for them from a number of perspectives. Those plastics carry toxins, and they also can just become impacted on all the plastic. A big part of our mission here is actually to try to prevent these problems rather than just reactively treating them as they come in. So towards that end, our conservation department works very hard to try to prevent a lot of these things through educational and informational campaigns. We do have a sea turtle protection zone. Our 9.5 miles of beach here in Juneau Beach is one of the most densely nested sea turtle beaches in North America. There's basically another sea turtle nest about every 2 feet during the nesting season. So really a jewel in the crown of sea turtle reproduction right here in Florida. And because of that, we work very hard to protect those adult turtles. The other thing that is very common is fishing line entanglement or hook ingestion. We are trying to educate a number of peers how to sort of teach their fishermen that if the catch of the day is not what they anticipated, what do they actually do about that? And the most important thing is to not cut the line if you have accidentally caught a sea turtle. And we teach people how to sort of bring them up with a net, and then they can come in here and the hook can be safely removed, and then those guys can go back out into the wild. It is a one world, one health concept. Humans are not going to be able to survive if the oceans aren't healthy. And the sea turtle is a very charismatic species that is really typifying how healthy or unhealthy those waters are.
The Loggerhead Marine Life Center is open 7 days a week from 10 to 5, and there are no admission fees. For more on this center and the work they do, you can visit marinelife.org. Stay with us. There's more Animal Outtakes coming up next. Welcome back. And now we share a recent opportunity we came across to learn about some new red tide mitigation products. Mote Marine Laboratory says these technologies have gone through rigorous lab testing and are now in the field deployment research stage.
Red tide has been occurring along this coastline, documented from the time of Spanish explorers and the logbooks that they have from their conversations with the indigenous peoples that were here at the time, the descriptions of red tide. We have tried, as a country, as a human society, we have tried bombing red tide. We have tried so many different approaches to get rid of red tide. And the fact that we now have, because of the leadership of the state of Florida, we now have nearly 24 technologies that we know will work. These 3 are approved for deployment. We have nearly 24 that are ready to be deployed once we get through the permitting. So every single one of these developed technologies is a huge advancement in our ability to use science, to use advanced technology to solve problems, to restore ecosystems, to fight these harmful algal blooms. It's not difficult to kill the algae that starts red tide. You can kill it very easily. Give me a crop duster, fill it full of copper sulfate, spray the red tide, and you'll kill all that red tide. You'll kill everything else in the marine ecosystem as well. So our mantra is, with all of these technologies, none of them will do any greater harm to the environment than the red tide is already doing. The first one, it's called Clear. And Clear is a biocide that was developed here at Mote by our scientists, and it utilizes natural plant-based compounds to decrease the red tide, the Carenia brevis, lower the toxin levels, and it is something that is already approved for use.
We evaluated almost 50 natural compounds that were derived from plant extracts from terrestrial and aquatic plants. We wanted to make sure that whatever we were proposing to use as an algicide or a biocide actually was safe. We selected one that showed the most promise, and we have gone through the process of the tier testing, and this product, Clear, is now registered with the state of Florida. We can use this product in areas where there's fishing, in areas where there's shellfish harvest areas. So it's a safe product. Clear has a half-life, meaning half of it is gone within an hour and a half, 1.6 hours actually. So in 8 hours, 97% of Clear is gone, it's degraded in the water column, and that is a really important feature.
Extreme treatment compound is a liquid compound. It's biodegradable. You spray it on the water by plane, by crop duster, by boat. You can spray it off the shore. That product is ready to deploy tomorrow. Our product, when you spray it on the water, that smell, that bad toxic smell you smell, it's eliminated. This technology has been around for a while. We're in the hog industry, we're in the chicken industry, and we're ready to deploy. And it could be sprayed by land, by boat, by plane. When you see the red tide bloom 5 miles offshore, we could hit it with seaplanes and hit it even before it comes to the beach. With our testing in the big vats, tanks were red tide, and then the clams were in the tanks, and then we treated it with Extreme. Like 2 weeks later, when they did it, the clams were not toxic. So this could be also great technology for all those harvest farms out in the bays.
So Prescott Clean Water Technology, our product is ozonics. It is chemical free, it's based on cavitation and the oxygen that's in the air that you breathe right now. So what we do is there's no moving parts in the cavitation array. You push the water over what is effectively small razor blades. The pressure differential, the drop in pressure, forms a cavitation bubble which immediately collapses. And through that collapse of the bubble, you wind up being able to kill the cells and eliminate all of the toxin associated with it. It destroys the cell and oxidizes the toxin, all in one step. This is completely chemical free. We don't add anything to the environment. We have a diesel generator on board. That's pretty much the only component that needs to be done. We take the air, the oxygen that's in the air, we mix it with cavitation, which makes nanobubbles, and we've proven through Mote to be safe and effective in that process.
These three may be used in concert. They may be used in sequence. It depends where the red tide is. Are we deploying the technology subsurface, on the surface? Is it in Sarasota Bay, Charlotte Harbor, Tampa Bay? Is it in a canal system? So it really is highly dependent on where the red tide is at that time, whether it's going to be in combination or sequential. And I do hate to say it, but it will actually take a real major red tide for us to continue to learn how these are best applied in partnership with all of the folks that you see behind me here.
We know that one particular product isn't going to solve all the different scenarios of a red tide event. And so we're looking to develop a toolbox where we have many different technologies and processes that would be applicable to different applications.
We're working very patiently but very deliberately through the permitting process for the other 12 technologies. We need them all to be approved, but we do have to work through those processes. This isn't about hope, this is about deployment. We've developed the technologies with our partners. This has been an incredibly innovative science and technology-based approach to really solve a problem that exists in our environment that negatively impacts us in so many different ways. And this is science really at its best in coming up with solutions, not just studying a problem and monitoring a problem, but developing the solution. So again, I applaud the state of Florida, I applaud our partners, and most of all, our wonderful scientists here at Mote and this community that supports Mote. If this community didn't support Mote, we wouldn't be here right now.
And we'll be right back. Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org. We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some engaging and educational encounters. Until then, thanks for watching.